By the time they'd secured me with bright orange zip ties, I'd already concluded that they were the ones in real trouble. There I lay, face pressed into the front lawn of my home in Cedar Hollow Reserve, my cheek grinding into the decorative mulch, as three men in identical HOA security jackets pinned me down like they were auditioning for a cheap police drama. "Suspect is under control," the largest one barked, breathing heavily. "Secure the ankles, Jeff. I live here," I muttered into the soil. "You tackled me while I was taking out the recycling." Non-compliant subject persists with verbal defiance, their leader declared, as if narrating for an invisible audience. "We are acting under the authority of the Community Protection Initiative." My left shoulder pulsed with pain. I managed to twist just enough to catch a glimpse of the ringleader's face, mid-40s, buzz cut, aviator sunglasses, and a scowl that practically advertised a bitter divorce involving a boat. Then the front door of my house swung open. Came a calm, steady voice from the porch. "Why is our homeowner Zip tied in his own yard?" The three HOA security men looked up. Framed in the doorway stood two individuals Wayowie, never once second-guessing your tactical decisions. My older brother Logan Hart and his close friend, Miguel "Mig" Alvarez, both former Marines. Both built as. They lived at the gym, both carrying that quiet, lethal calm that only comes from years and places where people shoot at you for real. Their gazes swept the scene in an instant, my bound wrists, the plastic TIs. "The fools and windbreakers, identify yourselves," Logan said, his voice low and even. The ringleader straightened, chest puffing out. "We are the official security patrol for the Cedar Hollow Reserve Homeowners Association," he announced grandly. "We are detaining this suspicious individual on charges of trespassing and potential vandalism." Logan blinked once, deliberately. "This suspicious individual," he echoed, "is my brother Evan Hart. He owns this house. Your detention constitutes felony false imprisonment." Mig cocked his head slightly. "You gentlemen hold private security licenses?" he asked. "Or is this simply a costume party with serious liability problems?" The trio's confidence evaporated in an instant. The biggest one swallowed hard. "We're just following directives from the HOA president," he muttered. Mrs. Carroll identified him as a threat from the sidewalk. A sharp voice sliced through the morning quiet. "That's correct," it declared. "And I stand by my assessment." Phyllis Carroll, HOA president, visor perched on her head, clipboard in hand, and a personality fueled purely by other people's discomfort, marched forward as if she'd summoned an elite strike team. "Boys," Logan murmured to Mig, "remember that last Ray briefing?" Mig nodded. "De-escalate. Secure the scene. Summon actual authorities." As they stepped down from the porch, none of the men in windbreakers realized they had just escalated the quiet recycling resident from neighborhood nuisance to key witness in a criminal matter. "My name is Evan Hart. I develop network security software, steer clear of group chats, and own the second smallest house in Cedar Hollow Reserve, a subdivision where every hedge is perfectly aligned, and rumors are sharpened into weapons. I chose the place for its peacefulness, solid garage, and the narrow band of woods behind it that let me pretend civilization ended at my property line. I work remotely. I maintain my lawn at an acceptable height, keep my music volume low, and limit conversations to the essentials. In short, I'm HOA catnip, a single male homeowner who keeps to himself and therefore must be concealing something sinister. From the moment I moved in, Phyllis Carroll decided I was her personal crusade. She was the type who revered community standards far more than individual rights. Helmet hair, floral tops, and a laminated badge proclaiming "President" in enormous letters. She referred to Cedar Hollow as "our brand." She called herself the pulsing core of enforcement. She labeled me that tech guy with the questionable garage. I made two critical errors. First, I installed a heavy-duty reinforced security door on my garage. Second, I had Marine veterans in my family. My brother Logan and his friend Mig were staying with me for a few weeks between jobs. They handled private security contracts, taught defensive driving classes, and occasionally intimidated delivery drivers simply by standing there. They were polite, unobtrusive guests, Phyllis spotted them once through a window while they were lifting weights in my garage, and instantly concluded I was operating some kind of paramilitary cell. If we ignore this, she warned the board, soon we'll have RVs in driveways and unauthorized wind chimes. I learned this secondhand from my neighbor, a retired teacher who viewed the entire HOA as a live study in how quickly authority corrodes common sense. I should have recognized the warning signs then. I simply never imagined it would escalate to abduction. The initial salvos were minor. It started with the formal letter, notice of potential non-compliant activity. Your residence has been noted for hosting multiple unrelated adult males and unusual late-night garage operations. Please submit a household occupancy declaration and a detailed description of all on-premises business activities. I ignored it. Next came the slow drive-bys. White SUV with the HOA logo. Phyllis in the passenger seat, neck craned to spy into my side yard like a wildlife tourist. Then the friendly visits. "Hello, Evan," she sang one afternoon, appearing at my door with a practiced look of concern. "We've received reports of unusual equipment in your garage. Nothing illegal, naturally just worrying." I glanced over my shoulder at Logan's heavy bag, Mig's weight bench, and my humming server rack in the corner. "Gym equipment and computers," I said. "We're highly allergic to criminal activity." She let out a thin, brittle laugh, her eyes darting past me as if cataloging my belongings. "You understand, don't you?" she pressed. "We have families here, children. We must be especially vigilant about outsiders." "Outsiders?" I echoed. "You mean my brother?" "I mean, anyone not listed on the mortgage," she replied with sugary sweetness. "According to our bylaws, extended guests require registration and approval for community safety." I had, in fact, read the bylaws. "I'm not asking for approval to have my own brother in my house." "Have a good one, Mrs. Carroll," I said, and shut the door firmly. That's when the anonymous emails began flooding in. Subject lines like, "Concerned resident, unknown males at lot 14, disturbing thumps after dark, potential unauthorized training operation, apparently." The rhythmic thud of a heavy bag at 7 in the evening now qualified as evidence of a secret boot camp. Logan and Mig shrugged it off at first. "This is small time," Logan said, sipping his coffee. "I've dealt with officers who had smaller power trips than her. She'll lose interest eventually." But Phyllis didn't lose interest. She doubled down. One morning, we stepped outside to discover a glaring yellow sign hammered into my lawn. Official reminder: HOA prohibits operating a business from residential property without prior approval. Scrawled underneath in marker, and absolutely no paramilitary training facilities. Mig stared at it, eyebrow arched. "Seriously? Phthisis because of my speed rope?" I yanked the sign out of the ground, took a quick photo, and forwarded it to the property management company with a concise message about ongoing harassment. Their reply was a masterpiece of corporate vagueness, something about board authority and discretionary enforcement. Then, at the following monthly HOA meeting, Phyllis rolled out her grand plan. "In light of recent troubling developments within our community," she declared from the podium, her gaze drilling straight into me despite addressing the entire room. "Your board has authorized the creation of the Cedar Hollow Resident Security Patrol. Volunteer residents, properly equipped, will monitor activity, report concerns, and, when required, perform citizen detentions until proper authorities can respond." Logan leaned over and whispered, "That is not remotely legal." "Oh, kidding," I muttered back, loud enough for nearby seats to hear. Phyllis acted as if she hadn't noticed. She had recruited 3 middle-aged divorced men who clearly missed feeling relevant, equipped them with walkie-talkies, high-visibility vests, and an inflated sense of purpose. In her mind, their primary mission was shielding the neighborhood from me. The morning of the takedown began, ordinarily enough. Coffee brewed, emails checked, Logan and Mig bickering good-naturedly over whose field rations had tasted worse. Trash day in Cedar Hollow is practically ceremonial. Bins may not appear curbside before 7 o'clock am, nor remain past 7 o'clock p.m., or you receive a politely worded letter inquiring whether you require clarification on the rules. A T705. I wheeled my recycling bin to the street like the compliant resident I was. That's when I spotted the white SUV parked at the corner, amber light bar glowing, HOA emblem prominent. Behind the wheel sat Todd, one of the new patrol volunteers, windbreaker zipped high like it was body armor. He raised his radio, staring intently at my house. I rolled my eyes and continued. I positioned the bin, turned toward the front door, and heard rapid footsteps pounding the pavement behind me. "Sir, step away from the property," a voice shouted. I half turned, bewildered. What? And then all three converged. One swept my legs out from under me. Another seized my shoulders. The ground rushed up fast. I landed hard, breath exploding from my lungs in a flash of white sparks. Target secured. Someone yelled triumphantly. A knee planted itself between my shoulder blades. My arms were twisted back. "Quit resisting," Todd grunted. "I'm not resisting," I gasped. "I'm trying to inhale." Hard plastic ratcheted tight around my wrist zip ties. "HOA security," Todd announced, winded. "Under Cedar Hollow regulations, we are authorized to detain suspicious persons." "Suspicious how?" I managed. "Unauthorized recycling activity, unverified occupants," he rattled off. "Mrs. Carroll states you are not the registered owner. The legitimate homeowner relocated and left you in possession. You have repeatedly refused to produce residency verification. That justifies immediate detention. That justifies," I wheezed, "an enormous lawsuit." They hauled me farther up the lawn, still prone. "Secure the ankles," Todd directed. "If he makes a break for the house, we can't allow access possible weapons inside." "There are weapons," I said through gritted teeth. "Two former Marines with zero patience for this nonsense." They paid no attention. Halfway across the yard, the front door swung open. Logan and Mig had heard the scuffle. "Why exactly are strangers wrestling my brother on his own grass?" Logan asked, tone deceptively mild. "You have 10 seconds to explain how this is lawful." Mig added. Todd took in two large, composed men he didn't recognize, a scenario spiraling beyond his control, and chose the worst possible response. "Escalation, stand back," he yelled, fumbling for a canister of department-issued pepper spray. "This is an authorized security operation. We control this scene." Mig's gaze flicked from the spray to my bound wrists to the embroidered logos on their jackets. "Logan," he said quietly, "remind me what's the state requirement for citizen's arrest again?" "Witnessing an actual felony," Logan answered. "This is just assault and false imprisonment." He raised his phone, started recording, and aimed it steadily. "Please continue," he told them. "I need clear audio for the district attorney." Right on cue, Phyllis swept onto the scene like the final boss appearing in the third act. Visor firmly in place, clipboard clutched like a shield, satisfaction practically radiating. "Outstanding job, team," she sang, hurrying up the walk. "Maintain control of the subject. I'll contact Officer Daniels, he's a personal friend." "Mrs. Carroll," Logan said evenly. "Feel free to call anyone you want. But first, you're going to explain why your pretend security force just assaulted a resident on his own property." She sized him up like he was an offending hedge. "And you are?" "His brother," Logan replied. "Logan Hart. This is Miguel Alvarez. We both served in the Marine Corps' military police specialty. We're quite familiar with proper detention procedures." Mig lifted his own phone, recording. "We're also familiar with the legal definition of kidnapping." Phyllis's smile tightened. "No one is kidnapping anybody," she insisted. "Section 12.3 of the Covenants grants the association broad rights to safeguard the community, including temporary detention of unidentified individuals. Until nothing," Mig interrupted, still calm. "Covenants don't override criminal law, and I'm certain they don't authorize tackling people in their front yards." I spoke up from my position on the mulch. "Still restrained down here, folks. Just in case anyone's keeping track." Logan crouched beside me, inspecting the TIs. "Don't cut them yet," Mig cautioned. "Evidence tampering. Let the real police document the full extent of the idiocy." He turned to Phyllis. "Go ahead and call your friend," he said. "We'll wait." "Or," Mig offered, I can dial 911 right now and report that unlicensed vigilantes just attacked and bound a homeowner based on hearsay. Your choice. Phyllis hesitated, confidence faltering for the first time. Fine, she snapped. We'll handle it your way. She yanked her phone from her purse, scrolled to a favorite contact, and tapped speakerphone. Officer Daniels, she cooed the moment he answered. It's Phyllis from Cedar Hollow. We've successfully apprehended a highly suspicious individual. Ma'am, the officer replied, voice heavy with early morning fatigue. This line is for emergencies only. This most certainly is an emergency, she pressed. Our security team has detained an unregistered occupant. We have him restrained. Right, hold on, Daniels interrupted sharply. Restrained how? Mig leaned closer to the phone. Good morning, officer, he said courteously. Miguel Alvarez, former Marine Corps military police. I'm currently at 14 Larks Lane, watching my brother-in-law, the legal owner of this property, lying face down on his own lawn, zip-tied by unlicensed HOA volunteers. We'd greatly appreciate some legitimate law enforcement on scene as soon as possible. A long beat of silence followed. Yeah, Daniels finally said. Yeah, I'm en route. The call ended. Mig offered the security team a thin smile. We'll all remain exactly like this until he gets here, he informed them. Nobody touches my brother-in-law. Nobody shifts him. Nobody so much as loosens a zip tie. You've already done plenty. Todd, suddenly registering that multiple phones were recording and real police were inbound, lost all color in his face. Phyllis, he muttered urgently, you swore this was authorized. She clutched her clipboard tighter, knuckles white. It is authorized, she whispered fiercely. The bylaws, Logan interjected in a flat tone, govern mailbox paint colors, not people. Curious neighbors began drifting onto their front porches. Phones raised, murmurs spreading. Nothing pulls a suburban crowd faster than the prospect of watching an HOA president face public legal consequences. The patrol car arrived with lights flashing, but no siren, as if the officer already regretted the assignment. Officer Daniels climbed out, hand resting near his duty belt, surveying the tableau. One zip-tied resident, 3 sweating volunteers, 2 unnervingly calm former Marines, and Phyllis practically humming with indignation. What, he asked slowly, exactly is going on here? Phyllis surged forward. Officer, thank heavens. We've secured a potential trespasser. He lives here. Logan cut in, gesturing toward me. Mortgage in his name, driver's license in his wallet, mail in his mailbox. I wiggled my bound wrists as best I could. Huge fan of your response time. Bawled out. Daniel's jaw flexed. He returned to his cruiser, retrieved a small folding knife, and crouched beside me. Mind if I cut these off? He asked quietly. Please do. 2 quick snips and feeling rushed back into my hands. He helped me to my feet. Evan Hart? He confirmed. You're the recorded owner? That's me, I said, rubbing circulation back into my wrists. Happy to fetch the closing paperwork if Mrs. Carroll wants to highlight her favorite sections. He pivoted to the 3 volunteers. Who made physical contact with him? All 3 fingers pointed wildly at one another. Todd gave the command, one blurted. Todd said we had to, another protested. He said the bylaws allowed it. Daniels raised a palm. Let me make this crystal clear, he said. Violating HOA rules is not a crime. Refusing to fill out HOA forms is not a crime. Tackling a resident and binding him on his own property, that is a crime. You're taking his side? Phyllis demanded, incredulous. We're only trying to make your job easier. Strange men have been coming and going at all hours too, Mig corrected calmly. There are exactly 2 of us. We come and go between 9 and 6. We carry groceries. Truly terrifying stuff. Daniel's radio crackled. Unit 12, you still handling that HOA disturbance? Need additional units? He keyed the mic. Negative, he replied. But connect me to a sergeant. Possible assault and unlawful restraint. Phyllis staggered back a step. Assault? We're the victims here. No, ma'am, Daniels said firmly. Mr. Hart is. And I've been telling you, people, for years. The HOA is not a police agency. You do not get to operate your own private force. He collected statements. He photographed the discarded zip ties in the grass. He took my version, then Logan's, then Mig's, then copied several neighbors' cell phone videos. Finally, why he faced me directly. Do you wish to press charges? I glanced at Logan and Mig. Without question, Logan answered. We've operated in real combat zones. I'll be damned if my kid brother gets ambushed by windbreaker wearing weekend warriors and walks away with nothing. Mig nodded. We'd also like the state to be notified about some unlicensed security operations. Phyllis spluttered. We're merely volunteers. You're volunteers. I said. Just impersonated authorities and committed battery. There's a specific legal phrase for that. Starts with colossally and ends with stupid. The corner of Daniel's mouth twitched, betraying the faintest smirk. Within days, the fallout accelerated. Todd and his two teammates faced misdemeanor charges for assault and unlawful restraint. The county prosecutor launched a formal review of the HOA's entire security program. I filed a civil lawsuit against the association for harassment, negligence, and infringement of my homeowner rights. But the sweetest moment arrived at the next HOA meeting. The clubhouse was standing room only. Residents who hadn't bothered to attend in half a decade showed up with lawn chairs and barely concealed glee. Phyllis sat behind the head table, pale and seething, flanked by two jittery board members and a lawyer whose face screamed regret over every life choice that led him here. The attorney cleared his throat. As everyone is aware, he began, recent incidents involving the Community Security Initiative have resulted in significant legal exposure. On advice of counsel, the board has unanimously voted to suspend all security patrol activities. Effective immediately, scattered applause broke out, then swelled into genuine cheering. Furthermore, he continued, the association has entered into a confidential settlement agreement with Mr. Evan Hart. Every head swiveled toward me in the back row. I rose slowly, trying and mostly failing not to look dissatisfied. The association, I announced, scanning the printed summary aloud, has agreed to cover all my medical expenses, compensatory damages for false imprisonment, and full reimbursement of my attorney fees. They've further committed to permanently disbanding the security patrol, amending the covenants to expressly forbid any resident-led detainment, and requiring all board members to complete certified training on actual legal boundaries and homeowner rights. I paused, folding the sheet neatly. Oh, and one more detail. Mrs. Carroll is stepping down as president, effective immediately. As a condition of the settlement, the clubhouse exploded. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One man in the third row let out an enthusiastic, woohoo. Someone near the coffee urn muttered, ding dong, the witch is gone. Phyllis slammed her clipboard onto the table with a sharp crack. This is an absolute outrage, she sputtered, face flushed. I devoted 10 years of my life to this community, and you nearly gave me a permanent back injury, I replied. Let's call it even. The attorney slid a pre-prepared resignation letter across the table toward her. Phyllis, he said softly, if you refuse to sign, the insurance carrier will deny coverage, and the pending criminal matters will only worsen. She scrawled her name with furious, jerky strokes about as graceful as a toddler signing a confession. In the weeks that followed, Cedar Hollow experienced something akin to collective decompression after years under a regime. The interim board, three refreshingly ordinary people whose priorities were low dues and zero lawsuits, actually began soliciting resident input. The overwhelming consensus, never again with the pretend police. Logan and Mig became neighborhood legends in the best way. The new board invited them to lead a workshop in the clubhouse titled, Real Security, What It Is and What It Most Definitely Isn't. They broke down basics like distinguishing genuine threats from a resident in basketball shorts, the legal requirement of probable cause before laying hands on anyone, the proven value of observe and report over tackle and restrain, and the revolutionary idea that your neighbor is not an adversary. Attendance became mandatory for anyone wishing to serve on the board in the future. Phyllis, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. The prosecutor extended an offer, No charges filed in exchange for a public apology at an open community meeting. Completion of an accredited course on civil rights and HOA legal limits. And a signed agreement never to organize or join any resident security effort again. On the evening of her apology, she stood at the same podium where she had once proudly unveiled her patrol program. I regret that my actions contributed to a hostile environment for Mr. Hart, she recited stiffly from a prepared statement. In my zeal for order, I allowed enthusiasm to cloud better judgment. Someone in the audience masked a cough that sounded suspiciously like understatement. As the room emptied afterward, she approached me near the exit. I hope you're happy, she said through tight lips. You've poisoned this entire neighborhood against me. I shrugged. I didn't restrain anyone with zip ties, I replied. I simply objected to being the one restrained. Logan materialized at my side, presence calm but unmistakably protective. Ma'am, he said with perfect courtesy, should you ever feel inspired to launch another security initiative, may I recommend a different model? She glared. Such as? Neighborhood watch, he answered. As in, watching the neighborhood, not assaulting it. 3 months later, Phyllis sold her house and moved away. The buyers were a young family whose sole infraction to date is a backyard trampoline visible from the street. The new board voted unanimously to overlook it. Life for me returned to its preferred quiet rhythm. I wrote code. I grilled steaks on weekends. Logan and Mig deployed to their next contract, but swore they'd swing by on their way back. Sometimes, when I wheel the recycling bin to the curb, I still glance around for reflective windbreakers out of old habit. There are none. No lurking SUVs with amber lights. No golf cart SWAT teams. Just kids riding bikes, sprinklers hissing, and a golden retriever convinced every passerby exists solely to pet him. I did one extra security camera overlooking the driveway. Purely nostalgic, you understand. Moral of the story, if your HOA's idea of safety involves zip ties and authority fantasies, the problem isn't crime, it's control. And if you ever decide to play police officer, you'd better hope the quiet guy you're tackling doesn't have 2 Marine veterans inside ready to step out, with the actual law firmly on his side, because that's one episode of Neighborhood Watch nobody wants to star in.